2011-12, the maximum Act 1 index was 1.4%. However, the board had a zero increase that year. The Act 1 index is always based, and the maximum amount is always based on the prior year actual. So for 12-13, the 1.7% increase had to be based on the 123.0169, which was our actual millage rate. That year in 12-13, we could have raised the taxes to 125.1081 mils, the tax rate. Again, we took a zero that year. 13-14, again, there was a 1.7% Act 1 index. Again, because we had no tax increase the prior year, the maximum tax rate was 125.1081. The board did take that last year. That generated 2.0912 mils. Again, looking at that median assessed value, the homeowners saw a gross of $73.30 increase in their property tax. 14-15, obviously, all options are open. Your tax rate can run anywhere from 125.1081 to 129.6227 if you used all the tax mills from both the referendum exception and the Act 1 increase. If you did the maximum, you would have a 4.5146 mil increase. At the bottom there, I'm showing two different scenarios. If you went to the maximum, again from that first screen, you would see median assessed home an increase of $158.01. If you only went to the Act 1 increase, you was again, a $35,000 homeowner would see an increase of $91.95 in their tax bill.
What about zero?
I want to do some comparison between what would have happened had the district, again, took the Act 1 index every year. And in 2010-11, we took the Act 1 index, so there was no change there. The homeowner had, again, that $121.34 increase. In 11-12, had we gone to the 1.4% increase, the homeowner would have seen $60. 12-13, $74. 13-14, $75. And 14-15, a $95 increase. I just provide this to you as in a perspective that had the district determined to use the Act 1 index every year, we would be at 131 compared to the maximum of 129.6 that we are this year. Again, it's just for historical and for comparative purposes.
We're just lucky.
No, we did not.
We're just lucky. I didn't do that.
Right, because the top, that was the actual. 7330 on the top is the actual. It was lower than what it would have been had you, again, we had 2 years of.
You can see what we lost, what we left on the table, because even going full vote to Act 1 plus referendum, we're only going to get this much where we would have been there.
Yeah, oh wow.
It's all right.
I have a question.
If I'd have paid more, I would have been paying more.
About that. Why did the assessed value go down in 2011-12, and then why is it predicted to go up in 14 to 15?
Because of assessment appeals. That was, if you remember, those were the years of the recession, and we had assessment appeals, and we've seen some building over the last couple of years.
Okay, and so it's going up because there's some new
homes, new complexes coming on board, so yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
What percentage of our properties are at the median, do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah.
The median would be the
35.
Would be the.
More money.
Well, actually, in May, when I get the homestead farmstead information, I can tell you the actual, that 35,000 could change this year, but I can get that in May. I'll have that information when we get to the
I guess my question is, whatever it is, what's, who's applied to it as a percentage?
I don't.
I know.
Yeah, I think we looked at that before.
Again, the specific departments the board has asked to review. Tonight was the last one. We have reviewed debt facilities and maintenance back in February, debt service in January, capital projects in February, transportation early March, and tonight we had special education. There's one area, personnel, which you will be presenting at the May, publicly to the at the May facilities finance meeting. Okay, this is just the timeline showing where we're at, what's
Where
been
we
done.
are.
Okay, we're still doing budget discussions, March through June. Okay. We're not putting a referendum question to the county. We've actually passed that deadline anyways. Tonight we had the April 8th budget update. May 7th is the next finance meeting. We also in May need to adopt a preliminary budget, and we need to proposed final budget. We already adopted preliminary. A proposed final budget in May needs to sit for 30 days, and then we will adopt the final budget in June. And Mr. Sarnes, I believe you had some questions about changing the dates of meetings.
Yeah, I was hoping board members would be willing to do the final budget adoption on June 10th, only because I'm going to be out of the country from June 11th through the 23rd, so that's too late by the time I get back. So if we move it up a week, right, Kathy?
Yes. And then we would also have to move the proposed final budget adoption, the same number of days, because I do need 30 days between the time it's adopted to sit until the final. So we would be moving that May date as well, and we'll have to count the 30 days back. If the board is okay with June 10th, I'll count 30 days backwards. I did not bring it forward.
I would hope we would accommodate you, you know.
Yeah.
Why is June 24th too late?
We need more than 6 days to work on the information that comes back and forth between the county and the tax collectors. We don't do anything with producing bills until the board has officially adopted the budget for millage rates. Nothing can be done, so we need at least we need more than a week to get that accomplished between the three entities.
How much time?
At least 2 weeks.
There've been years when they haven't gone out on July 1st, isn't that true?
That is true. I'm not quite sure we want to delay our cash flow. I mean, the later they go out, the later we start to get our monies in.
Is there, if we're going to do the final adoption on June 10th, so that's 30 days.
Well,
And then yeah,
somewhere.
yeah, but that's a Sunday, so.
It would have to be, obviously, we can't do it on a Sunday. It has to be 30 days, so it would have to go to that part. It will be early in May. I think I'm saying May, not when Mr. Sarnes might have that. And again, you can make changes.
We can still,
You
we're
can
still
still
gonna have
make
to do
changes.
some changes.
Between, I think we were discussing perhaps having the proposed budget, yes, on May 7th. I think Mr. Sarnes has what we discussed, is that we have a meeting that night. And again, you can still make changes between the adoption of the proposed final up until the time you adopt the final budget.
Want to just think on that and let Kathy finish going through the numbers.
I'm giving you a look at 2014, I thought it was good to look at the current year and compare it to where we're at in 2015. This is what was presented earlier. This is what this looked like. So back in January, we were showing a $10 million deficit. Last year, we adopted a budget that had a deficit of $1.4 million. And that's this current year's budget. So it's important that you saw that. Local revenue update. As I said, as we got closer to the adoption of the budget, that I would feel more comfortable in making changes to some of the numbers. First of all, as we received information that we were awarded the referendum exception, we took the liberty of making the assumption that the board will accept that. We also, as I looked at our earned income tax, and Mr. Nyman and I have been discussing this, actually, we've seen an increase in our earned income tax, which is very good, which means folks are working.
I want you to offset the property
So
tax.
we are actually, that gives us another $1 million in earned income tax to be considered to help offset the deficit. State and federal revenue. The governor's budget does show Pennridge School District getting $600,000 additional monies based on an education grant. I am hopeful that we will get that $600,000, so we've included that in the budget as well. Federal revenue, no changes to that. As I mentioned when I started this presentation, the cabinet and other administrators have been working to look for areas to reduce the expenditure budget. Again, we put this budget together, input that we received in October, basically 2 months almost after school started, and we knew that those numbers were going to be very rough. Things that we believe that we can live without. There were new positions that were requested in the budget. As a cabinet, we went through and we believe at this point we will make the sacrifice and not ask for those new positions at this time. Over enrollment aids, Dr. Radigan presented sister schooling several weeks ago. Last year, when we had sister schooling, we had to hire aides. Aides, this is the amount of money that those aides were costing us, so that would come out of our budget. Medical insurance, we have been working with Steve Allen, as you know, is our consultant for benefits. Between the amount that we had anticipated, our pseudo development rate, and our claims, we believe that we can reduce our self-funding to our self-funding account by $1,500,000. The tech school, when I built the budget, I took the tech school's amount that we were paying in 13-14 out of the Act 1 increase because that's the maximum that it can go up unless we have enrollment changes. And in fact, we did have enrollment changes between the other two ascending schools, so actually our figures actually went down. They did not go up, so I was able to take $126,945 out of the budget for that as well. Also, secondary one-to-one program, if that program is approved, again, everything is based on the assumption right now that program is going to be approved. We've also made the assumption that we will lease versus purchase those computers next year, so we're taking $350,000 out of that budget. And as I mentioned earlier, we had $400,000 that was budgeted both as access dollars and as general fund dollars, local revenue dollars in for special education, so we will be taking that $400,000 out as well. So the expenditure budget actually, salary benefits and direct instruction at this point is being reduced by $3,155,375.
I have a question about so the computer, so that comes out, is that in the program improvement budget or?
Yes.
I thought the program improvement budget was $300,000.
The program improvement budget, I don't know how, it was more than that this year because of of the one-to-one program was in there, so I don't know, I didn't. I don't know what Matt's budget is, I'm sorry, I don't know Matt's budget right off the top of my head.
Yeah, I was just, so that's what I'm wondering is what was budgeted for,
$350,000 more for computers, but the whole over, we would have to ask Mr. Smith what his budget is. Then we continue with what I call reductions in non-instructional areas. Non-routine maintenance, if you remember, Mr. Longford came and presented a list of items for consideration. In the budget, if you recall, we used to call it the $650,000 budget. We started out with $650,000. We believe that we can get what we need and reduce that by $380,000. So with $270,000, I believe we can get what items that were listed on there for consideration. Of course, all those items are out to bid, and those will come back to the board in May or June for board's approval of those individual items. Bus replacements, again, we have $700,000 had $700,000 in the budget for bus replacements. Again, we don't have a discussion about purchasing buses until sometime in November. However, those buses could be leased out of our capital budget. We have monies in there right now. So we could actually lease those buses to the board to determine in November. So we will take that $700,000 out. Also in the budget, as we discussed last night, there was a $680,000 line item for transfer of dollars for infrastructure technology. We are at a point right now, and that we did not need those types of dollars, and we requested any $100,000, so we'll be reducing that line item by $580,000. Bond payment. This is one, and I think Mr. Sarnes may have we'll discuss this as well. Between the $12 million that Glenn showed you this evening and the $13 million whatever, there is a $600,000 difference. I can take that out this year to balance the budget. However, $600,000 next year has to go right back into the budget. So this is one of those items we either take it out or we leave it in, and perhaps we leave it in and we just know that, yes, we'll have an unbalanced budget by $600,000, but we also know this year we're not spending those dollars. So we can treat that in either fashion, but again, next year I do have to put $600,000 right off the bat back into the budget. Staff development, Dr. Brevard believes he can reduce that budget by $50,000. If you recall, last month I brought the Amerex energy back to you and showed that there would be purchasing the heat units for the next 2 years. We would be below budget what we've paid this year, $45,000 each year. So I did request Mr. Lockford to remove $45,000 from the electric budget. Vehicle and liability insurance, we believe that we can reduce that by $6,000. So our total reductions in non-instructional is $2,361,000 for a total reduction of $5,516,375 in expenditures.
Halfway.
And this is the 2014-15 budget summary. And I'm showing you some other assumptions that we are making. Estimated committed fund balance, that is your PSERS reserve. There's PSERS reserve, and there's about $35,000 sitting in there for training related to the SunGuard system and any additional components that we might want to purchase that we have not yet spent. So that's still sitting in there. We're making the assumption, I made the assumption in talking with Dr. Radigan that if the board's going to approve a referendum exception equal to $1.1 million, it might make sense to use the PSERS reserve to matching funds. So that's the assumption made there. Our estimated uncommitted fund balance, that is the 4%. That is for items should we have some sort of catastrophe, then we needed those dollars. We could have up to 8% in there, but we only carry a 4%, between 4 and 6% uncommitted fund balance. Revenue, from what was presented in January to now, those changes that I showed you on screen 1 are equal to $2,714,804. I showed you that the expenditures would be reduced by the $5.5 million. I'm anticipating the $1.1 million in use of reserve funds, which brings us down to a deficit of $1,419,296. At this point, I will say that we have made no assumptions yet regarding retirements. That is something that we are still working on, and that will be presented. So I would anticipate that that $1.4 million would be less than that once we look and take into consideration retirements and so forth, and replacements. Questions? That's it.
Kathy, the assumption that you make that you're gonna collect, what is it, 92%? What is the?
96. 96%.
Haven't we been running higher collections than that?
Really, 96 has been the collection for real estate taxes.
Kathy, on the expenditure update, the bus replacements, I wasn't clear, the lease or purchase capital, are you saying that we're gonna take the money out of the capital improvement?
Capital projects.
Capital
Projects. I'm sorry.
So we're just taking it from a different,
We're taking it from a different account.
I don't know if you started talking about leasing, what is?
We could also lease the buses and just pay for the lease out of the capital projects as well.
Okay,
It's
so,
an allowable expenditure out of capital projects.
and then the bond payment, you have the one-time savings, you have 600,000, but isn't it 503,000?
Well, no, actually, between what I have in the budget and what Glenn was projecting, and again, this is before tonight's budget, so it might even be a wider spread. But I was projecting between what I had in the budget. I already have 13 million something, I'm sorry, I don't have that right in front of me, but I have 13 million is like one in the budget now dedicated to debt service. Next year's payment, Glenn tonight says 12 million something or other, so that's where the difference is. But again, if you look at then the following year, I need 13 million some odd dollars. So again, we could take it out, but next year it has to come back in. Has to. There's no option, because I am required by law. We signed the resolution tonight that we will budget debt service. That is something that, it's not an option not to budget for it.
Yeah, I have some questions. Excuse me.
I'm sorry, I just have a quick one. So the 1.4 reflects that 600 out?
It does reflect the 600,000. Yes, it does.
I have some questions, the last time we had the transportation review, and I wonder if you haven't answered, and I wonder if you could maybe prepare answers for the next time?
Well, actually, Transpar was to be here tonight, but with everything that was going on, so yes, those things will be addressed, I believe, at the.
Okay, my questions were related to what causes our buses to fail, and the 250 or 225,000 miles, those questions.
Right, they have those, yes.
Thank you.
Do we have a calendar of what the board meetings are? Does anybody have? Okay, good. Because I think we need to schedule, first of all, I think we're going to have an extra meeting at least. We need to go over, well, we need to have your presentation on the personnel issues. Yeah, but you're not, we can't wait to do all this till one meeting in May and then expect us to vote on the budget. So I think we need to have, if we can, sometime this month yet, I think there's some open dates that we could.
Mr. Sturdy, I think we said April 23rd, we'd have an executive session where I will present.
Right, I realize that, but I mean a public meeting to
go over some other things too.
Oh, okay.
So yes, we have that meeting.
Were you
Oh.
trying to piggyback on that, Dr. Ryden? Is that what you were saying?
I don't think that,
Not necessarily. Oh,
I don't think that would be, I don't think that probably would be make for,
a long.
because you'd have to have your executive session
No,
first.
yeah, I don't want to do
I
that.
thought that's what she was saying.
So sometime after April.
What, yeah,
20th.
what's on the schedule? Is there any time? That's a Wednesday. How about the 24th? Or
There's nothing, the 28th is the board meeting. So
is the 24th available? What's it?
24th is a Thursday.
Is that,
There's nothing on the
VOTEC?
schedule.
Yeah, what's the vote time?
Isn't that
That's
usually
The week before, I think.
Tech is the 17th.
It's the 17th,
Tech
yeah.
is the 17th.
17th, okay.
It's the 17th,
Would,
so the 24th should be, looks like it's
what I would like is, at that time also to have a complete, at least a high-level budget with 2012-13 numbers, last year's budgets, this year's budgets, variances, in maybe in order of importance, you know, like salaries, debt service,
Do you want to get together?
yeah. With that, I think that would help, at least would help me. And then,
And then with the 7th, then in May, because then May 7th is a finance committee.
yeah, and we still have some other things, the transportation, there's still other things we have to still go over, right? We want obviously some more information on special ed. But I think we really need that, we need to put this whole thing together because I'm struggling, you know, we have, and I like the presentations and all, but now it's time to put it all together so we can see where we stand. And, you know, as it relates to these, if you can also take these into account, right, with your budgets. So if that's okay with board members, then I'll work with Kathy and we'll have a meeting on the 24th. And we'll make sure that we get stuff out to everybody ahead of time to look over. Is that great? You think we can do that?
It's going to be difficult to have a meeting on the 23rd.
Oh, well, but how about everything else? At least everything else besides the salaries,
We can
yeah.
wrap that stuff, maybe
What
wrap
about
that
the
stuff.
30th or May 1st? Is there anything?
There's some meetings that week, isn't there? I thought there was,
I don't think,
The 28th.
yeah.
what's on the
28th is
schedule?
board
No,
meeting.
Monday, the 28th is the board meeting, and then the rest is open.
No, well, which thing? Is there a negotiation?
I gotta look at all
That
those,
just all
because
changed,
the
that
number
just all
of,
changed today. We canceled all our dates. That happened like, so.
It wasn't acceptable, so now I carry it before.
The 29th is the foundation event, so
Okay.
could you May 1st, a Thursday?
Okay, well, that's fine with me. Yeah. Well, if we can, maybe a week later would be better, then that way we can take into account the personnel issues.
May 3rd or 4th, is that possible?
I thought there was,
4th is Sunday, 5th or 6th. We have the 8th, May 6th is academic performance.
right,
The 7th is finance.
yeah, there's a lot of meetings that week, so I would like to do it the week before. Okay.
So we're not doing the 24th
Now,
of April.
let's do it a week later. What day is Thursday? What's the date?
Thursday, May 1st.
May 1st, what are you gonna?
First, I can check on the time. Steve and I are both going to New York for the first.
And when's the foundation?
That's on Tuesday, the 24th.
Well, how about Wednesday then?
We said that's negotiations.
Oh, I thought you
But
No,
there's a
no,
chance that
the
we're,
30th, they canceled that day.
there's a
Oh,
chance
okay,
that we're
30th.
okay there.
All right, well then let's do the 30th.
Right?
April,
Am I
yes.
right?
You're right.
April 3rd.
In addition to the 24th or instead?
No,
It's
just
dead.
instead.
And we're having something on the 23rd?
Yes,
Executive
executive
session.
session. Personnel.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any other questions for Kathy now. I want to, if that's the case, I think the next section is the facilities. Barry, you can take over now.
About a break.
For a short 5-minute break.